I want to tell you about a window that almost no man notices until it's already closed. There is a season that in every marriage that ends in divorce where the wife stops fighting. She stops correcting, she stops requesting, she stops complaining, stop asking for you to change, starts being calm, starts being even. She even starts being almost pleasant again. And the husband, because he is exhausted from years of friction, exhales. He thinks the worst is over. He thinks she softened. He thinks they're finally past the hard part. Well, he's wrong. What he is actually watching is the quiet phase, the last phase before the file gets open in the attorney's office across town. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what that phase looks like, why it happens in the men who think that they're doing well, and what's almost certainly going to happen in your marriage if nothing in your posture changes in the next 90 days. I'm Noah Allen, and I help men in your exact situation catch this window before it closes for good. The link for a clarity call with my team is in the description below. I also wrote a book called The Heroic Husband Method, and that's in the description below, or you can look us up on Amazon. Read it tonight if you want the full framework in one sitting. Let me start by predicting what is going to happen. If your wife is currently in the quiet phase and you do nothing, this is the most likely trajectory. Inside the next 6 months, she will begin researching for her options quietly without telling you. She will talk to a friend who has been through a divorce. She will look at apartments in a tab she closes when you walk in. And she will price out a family attorney in another city so it doesn't show up on a shared credit card. Inside the next 12 months, she will make her decision, and it will not look like a decision to you. It will look like the same calm that you have been thanking God for since the fighting stopped. Inside the next 18 months, she will tell you. And when she tells you, your first reaction will be shock because the marriage from your seat had been getting better. That is what I keep seeing. That is the pattern. The husband does not see it coming because he has been reading the room wrong for over a year. Now, let me tell you why this happens to the most responsible, faithful, hardworking men in this audience. A woman who is unhappy in a marriage goes through 3 phases. The first phase is fighting. She tells you what's wrong. She brings it up. She asks for change. She gets emotional. She cries. She raises her voice. She makes you uncomfortable. And in this phase, most men try to manage the discomfort. They argue back. They defend. They explain. They withdraw. They get defensive. They tell her she's overreacting. She's too emotional. They tell her they're doing the best that they can. The second phase is bargaining. She stops fighting as hard and starts asking smaller questions. Can we go to counseling? Can we go to trips together? Can you put your phone away at dinner? Can you come to bed early? Can we pray together? Can we read a book together? She's still hoping. She's just hoping in smaller pieces. And then the third phase begins. And this is one that ends the marriage when the husband doesn't recognize it. The third phase is the quiet phase. She stops requesting. She stops correcting, stops bargaining, stops crying. She stops bringing it up. Not because she got what she wanted, because she stopped believing it was ever coming. The fighting was hope. The bargaining was hope. The quiet phase is absence of hope. And here's what almost every man misses. The husband interprets the quiet as absence of conflict. She interprets the quiet as the absence of him. He thinks the storm has passed. She's no longer in the same weather as him. There's a man I've been working with privately. We'll call him Jacob. Jacob came to me about a year ago. He told me his marriage had been hard for years, but things were finally settling down. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't getting angry anymore. She wasn't bringing up the same complaints anymore. She was even. She was kind. She was polite. She had started cooking again. She had started planning family logistics again. And Jacob thought he had finally turned a corner. Then on a Tuesday in October, she sat him down at the kitchen table and told him she had already met with an attorney twice. Jacob said the worst part of the moment was not the words that she said. The worst part was realizing she had been somewhere else for a year and he had never even noticed. Because she had stopped requesting. She had stopped correcting. She had stopped fighting. And in the absence of those signs, he had stopped paying attention. That's the trap. In the high-functioning marriage, the husband uses friction as a gauge. No friction means no problem. But friction was the last gift she was giving. Friction was her still investing energy in trying to be understood. Friction was her saying, I haven't given up on you yet. When the friction stops, most men think that the gauge reading is green. The gauge is actually broken. She stopped pulling on you because the audit was finished. She ran the numbers, closed the books, moved on inside her head. Let me name the small signals most husbands miss during the quiet phase. She stops asking you when you'll be home. She stops asking you about your day at dinner. She stops asking you to come to her sister's birthday. She stops asking you to put your phone down. She stops asking you to be more affectionate, and she stops asking you to plan something for the weekend. You will feel the absence of these requests as peace. You will feel the lack of pressure as relief. You will feel her even tone as warmth. It is none of those. It is the sound of a wife who no longer believes the request will be heard. So she stopped making them. There is also another set of signals that goes the other direction. She becomes very efficient with the kids. She handles the logistics without conversations. She handles money without conversations. She even handles a calendar without a conversation. She is independent in a way that feels mature from the outside and lonely from the inside. You will think that she's becoming a better partner. She's becoming a single mother inside her own marriage. She's rehearsing what it will feel like to run her life without consulting you. And every week that rehearsal goes well, makes the actual move easier when she finally makes it. This is a moment to do something practical. Pause the video for a second and go to the link below to book a clarity call with my team. That link is in the description. That call is built specifically for men who can feel that something has gone quiet at home and isn't sure what the quiet is telling him. We will help you read the room the way that she's actually reading it. And if you are not ready for a call, get the book, The Heroic Husband Method. That link is in the description below, or you can find us on Amazon. Read it in a single sitting tonight. Now, I want to tell you the second prediction. If you read this quiet phase correctly and you change something fundamental in the next 60 to 90 days, this trajectory is what I see instead. In the first 30 days, she will not soften. She will get more guarded. She will not trust the change at first because she has trusted change before and got burnt. You will feel like you're losing ground, but you're not. You are testing whether the change is real. In the next 60 days, she will begin to test you. Not on purpose, her body will do it. She will be a little colder than usual one night. Just see if you go back to the old patterns. She will say something a little sharp at dinner to see if you defend yourself the way that you used to. She will go silent at a moment where the old you would have filled the silence. And the man who passes those tests without performing, explaining, without pursuing, without retreating, starts to feel the room shift. In the next 90 days, she starts to ask a question internally. She wasn't going to ask it. She had stopped asking questions, but the question comes back. Is this man different now? That's the moment the quiet phase ends. Not when she tells you she still loves you, not when she initiates sex, and not when she lets her guard down at dinner. The moment the quiet phase ends is when her body starts asking questions she had decided not to ask anymore. Now, I want to make this part very clear. The quiet phase does not respond to gestures. It does not respond to trips, to apologies. It does not respond to flowers or the grand promises. The quiet phase ends in only one way. A different man walking into the same room. Not a different schedule, not a different vocabulary, not a different list of promises, a different man. A man whose presence finally matches the weight that she's been carrying alone. A man who is grounded enough that her nervous system can stop scanning him. A man who doesn't need her warmth to find his own warmth. A man who doesn't need her to trust to keep showing up. That is the only thing that interrupts the trajectory I described before. It has to be real. It cannot be performed. She has been watching you for too long to be fooled by performance. Let me tell you the part of this that I never enjoy saying out loud. The quiet phase has a window. The window is not unlimited. And the longer your wife sits inside the quiet phase without seeing a different man emerge, the harder the trajectory becomes to reverse. The men I work with privately who catch the quiet phase inside the first 6 months have a meaningful, different outcome than the men who don't notice until 18 months in. That's not me trying to scare you. That is what I keep watching happening across men in your exact situation. The early recognition is the asset. The late recognition still has a path, but the path is steeper. If you're sitting there right now trying to date in your head when the quiet started, that's the moment to do something about it. Not tomorrow, today. There's a man I've watched do this work who told me something I wanted to leave with you. He said by the time he realized the quiet wasn't peace, his wife had already had 2 conversations with people she trusted about whether she should leave. He told me the change in him in the next 90 days did not pull her back immediately. It made her cancel a 3rd conversation, and that cancellation was the first move back towards the marriage. She didn't tell him about it for a year, but it happened because something in him finally got steady enough that her body could feel it. That's what we're talking about. The change does not have to be loud to be felt. It does not have to be announced to be real. She is reading the room with a sensitivity you may not even understand this entire time that you've been married to her. This is bigger than your marriage. There is a generation of men who are sleepwalking through the quiet phase right now. And there's a generation of women who are quietly closing the books on marriages that they once believed in. The men who reverse this are not just rescuing their own homes. They're rebuilding what masculinity actually means inside a family. A man who can read a quiet room and not run from it is a man his children will trust when life gets quiet on them. That responsibility is on you, not because you signed up for it, but because you are the one standing inside the house right now. Now, let me name something honestly. You can hear this entire video and still not know what to actually do tomorrow morning when she walks into the kitchen and her face is calm and you feel that quiet, and your old reflex is to thank God it's a calm morning and just enjoy it. There is a gap between seeing the quiet for what it is and knowing the move that interrupts the trajectory. A diagnosis is not the surgery. Weather forecast is not a coat. The men who actually walk out the other side have all walked through the gap with help. Not because they couldn't do it alone, but because the cost of doing it alone is the marriage itself. That's the door. That opens on the clarity call. That link is in the description below, or again, you can get our book in the description or look us up on Amazon, The Heroic Husband Method. Read it tonight. Use that call to make sure you are reading the quiet correctly. If your house has gone quiet, do not exhale. Pay closer attention than you have in years. Watch how she looks at you when she thinks you're not looking. Watch how she texts you during the day. Watch how she handles logistics. Watch how she handles the kids' weekend. Watch what she does with the bedroom door at night. The signals are there. They are very different than the signals from the fighting phase. They are quieter, but they are not subtle. They are just easier to miss because they don't ask anything of you. That's a prediction, that's the trajectory, and it can be interrupted. But not by trying harder at what you've been doing, by becoming a man different in the same house. I'm going to leave you with one more frame. A quiet phase is the moment the marriage stops being mutual and starts being a decision she is making about you privately. For a season, the marriage existed in the open between you. You fought. You both bargained. You both kept trying. There was an us, even if the us was strained. The quiet phase is where us disappears and the marriage migrates inside her head. She's no longer talking to you about it. She's talking to herself about you. And whatever conclusion she reaches in there is what the next chapter of your life looks like. You do not have access to the room. You cannot argue your way into it. You cannot earn your way into it with grand gestures. You cannot reason her out of a conclusion she has already drawn because you weren't in the room when she drew them. The only thing that can change a conversation in that internal room is the man who walks past her in the actual house day after day. If that man becomes different, she has to update the file. She has to question the conclusion. She has to ask the question she has decided to stop asking. If that man does not become someone different, the file stays the way it is. And in time, the file becomes the decision, and the decision becomes a conversation on the Tuesday in October that you didn't see coming. If you want help making this real, book the call below. Or go get our book. Read it tonight. Decide tomorrow. I'm Noah Allen, and I'll see you in the next one.